LDG Electronics provides state-of-the-art antenna tuners for every amateur need. An LDG desktop tuner works automatically with nearly any station and up to 1,000 watts. LDG power tuners are ideal for portable and mobile use as they consume almost no current and can be powered by internal batteries that last up to a year. LDG tuners are backed by our 2-year, fully transferable warranty and our legendary customer service, the best in the industry. Visit us on the web at ldgelectronics.com.
And now, from Grid Square Echo Mike 48, this is 100 Watts and a Wire.
Well, hello and welcome to 100 Watts and a Wire. My name is Christian. My call sign's Kilo Zero Sierra Tango Hotel. This is episode 357. Imagine that, 357. This time around, it is a 30-day review. Our peer review. We have a cohort that have collected and come together to discuss a product called the Comet CTC-50M. You're saying, C-Child, what in the world is that? This is a window gap coax extension jumper. Okay, 100 watts, PEP. And the fellows have come together to talk about it. And if they like it and it may work for you, they'll let you know. If it's not so good, they'll let you know too. They're going to speak their truth. You might also be saying, how did this come to be? How do I become a reviewer? This is easy. All you need is a 100-watt ID. So go to 100wattsandawire.com, click the ID tab. You're sequentially issued one. Takes a couple of days. Once you have that number, you can go over to the 30-day tab. Read about it and learn how you can become a reviewer, just like we've done over several products. We take amateur radio products, ham-adjacent products, and we put them to the test. I don't want to be the person that says, go buy it. Let me go spend your money. I don't like that so much. So we put together cohorts, and they spend 30 days with the product, come back here, tell you how it worked for them. And in the end, they'll go through all the criteria points, and then we'll give it an overall rating. And then you can decide how you want to spend your money. So again, the Comet NCG CTC, lots of numbers and letters here, 50M. It is a window gap coax extension jumper, and it's a small product. And I thought to myself, I don't know about this one. This one's going to be I don't know about that. But these guys have come together to tell me, no, wait a minute. Let's talk about this because this has several different uses for them. So this has worked for them in some capacity, and let's see how well it did. Carson's here. He's WQ1L. Jim, N2ADV, and Jack, AB4WS is here. We're going to start off with the packaging, and we'll enter in Carson. Here, Carson's going to tell us how things looked when it arrived on your doorstep. Good day to you, sir.
Well, thank you so much. And it's WQ1I.
Q1I.
Yeah.
Let's start the whole show over. How about that? I'm just kidding. WQ1I. I won't make that mistake again. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Totally different person.
Okay. No, it arrived in a nice little package. And what was quite curious if it was going to work. And the situation here is I'm in a second floor apartment. The structure was built in 1850. And but fortunately, the windows have been updated. So these are the type of windows that pop out to clean. So I had a perfect gap to put it in, close the window up, and as you can tell, the 7300 loves it. So no issues with it. So I'm really happy with it.
All right, good. So packaging specifically now, Carson. This came to you. How was it shipped? What was it packaged well? Were you expecting something different? Did it meet your criteria with getting this thing in the mail?
Get a little choppiness here. So hopefully here.
Maybe. You're still okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we lost them. Then we'll move over. We'll move over to Jim. Jim, let's talk about the packaging for you. Some hams are very specific in the way they want their packages to arrive. They want their gear to be double boxed. This right here is an interesting piece. Maybe you can describe it for us, but talk a little bit about when this arrived and your thoughts.
All right, Christian, I can't tell if you're talking to me or not. You're breaking it pretty bad.
Oh, I am. Okay. Yeah, you're okay.
All right. Well, if I'm okay, then I'll just get forward. So, yeah, I mean, as talked about, it came in a neat little envelope here, and the box was huge. So when it came in this giant. I mean, this thing was like 5 times the size of the actual envelope itself, and honestly, I didn't know what it was coming in the door. So, but overall, it seemed like it was working pretty well, and I mean, it wasn't one of those things where you have to unbox the heck out of it. It was great.
So it just comes in a little plastic sleeve there. Can you describe what it's like, the actual piece, the actual gear itself? What does it feel like? What does it look like?
Well, if you're a martial artist, it's kind of like nunchucks, but it's just a little piece of flat coax. It's got some bits on the end, and it comes folded up in here. And honestly, this is great for carrying with you. It's pretty durable, the packaging. It's got a couple snaps on it. You tuck it in there, and you don't have to worry about it rattling around. The edges are pretty sharp, so it's good if you want to put it in the packaging and not cut anything up. But overall, I've got a couple of these, and for the things that I do, and I mean it's pretty flexible and twist around corners and stuff like that, and roll it up when you're done and toss it in the package.
Great. And our friends at home listening to this, the trick of this is that it's actually a flat. You think of coax and you don't think, I think of 213, which I've got buried out in the yard. I don't think of a piece of flat material there that you pass through a window. Jack, tell me your thoughts on the packaging and when it arrived at your house.
Yeah, it came in a box, cardboard box, opened it up, and it's got this sexy plastic bag. Snaps on the back. Like a great carrying case for it if you would need to take it different places. Just a fantastic idea, real thin, about a foot long with the two maybe inch by 3/4 of an inch by maybe an inch tall with SO239s out of each side, so that you can connect your cable that you run from the antenna to this device and from this device to your radio. Really nice small package, easy to travel with. 2 thumbs up for me on the packaging.
Well, we lost our brother Carson here. He's having some issues here, but I gotta tell you something. I want to double back to you guys and get both of your reactions on it. I gotta say I felt. And it's my ignorance because I didn't know. I have a different kind of pass-through. It's a piece of wood that's kind of wedged in between the window. It's got its own holes, that kind of thing. I thought this was probably a cheap little thing that was a gimmick. And from what I can see now in the packaging, this actually looks like it's built well. And this is just my eyes looking at the thing online here. Can you talk a little bit about the build of this thing, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, this thing is pretty solid. I mean, you can pop it right up here, and you can. Those of you who are tuned in via the video feed, I mean, it's weighty. I mean, it feels like they put some effort into making sure it was pretty durable. And I mean, even the thin coax that goes through the window gap. I mean, I've put this thing through a couple of windows, and it's still. It's not all creased up. It's not bent or broken. I was expecting originally that it would be something I would be able to put through the window and then it would have to stay there. And if you pull it out, it would break, or after a while, it would start to wear. I mean, if you fold it in half, I mean, it eventually, just like any kind of wire, it gets weak and it'll break. But overall, the thing seems like they put some thought into the build, and it looks like it's pretty weatherproof too. This is one of those things where I can snake it out the tent in the rain or something, and I'm not afraid of things water getting in and causing my SWR to skyrocket or anything like that, or causing my radio to not play well with the antenna.
All right, Jack, same kind of question. Comment on the build of this thing itself.
I'm impressed on the build. A weak point would be where the flat coax meets the plastic holder for the connectors. But I actually have had some of these for years and used them traveling, and they're still in good shape. They still work, and have not had any problem with them at all.
All right, guys, thank you so much for that setup there. Carson had to drop out, but we'll get a written a brief on what he has to say about this as well, and we'll stick with our two fellows in the cohort as we move on. Now it's time to move into the manual. Now, some people like me are not as technical. Some people are very technical, and they're a little disappointed in the manuals. Guys like me need a little extra sometimes, and others, we don't read the manuals at all. It depends on what the product is, right? So it's time for us to look at the manual, if there even was one. Jim, is N2ADV manual-wise, does it matter for you? I know for this experiment here that you would look at it and study it. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, typically I'm the usual ham where something comes in the mail and it's got the manual and I'm kind of throwing it out the window. But it's just a single pager. It's not really anything too terribly complicated. But it gets through the kind of the permanent installation of things. Gives you the instructions. It comes with double-sided tape, so you can tape it to wherever it is. It tells you how to mount it so it's not facing up. It gives you the frequency ranges and your max power you should run in it, that kind of thing. It doesn't get into when you're talking max power for HF to 50 megahertz. It doesn't talk about different duty cycles. So it doesn't say whether they're talking about single sideband, if they're talking about key down with CW, if you're talking about the more intensive modes like RTTY, RIDI, or FT8 or anything like that. But overall, it gives you at least a glimpse of what it can do. But like I said, at the end of the day, I would still have some questions after reading this.
Now, this retails now. You can get it at this time of the recording here. It is $59.95 at HRO. DX Engineering has it for $56.99. Jack, talk a little bit about your thoughts on the manual, what you needed, what you expected, what you thought.
As Jim said, the manual is very, very simple to the point. It's a single page. The device itself, I think, is very intuitive. Most amateur radio operators are going to see the PL259s, the coax, and probably just as most good hams do, not even read the manual. But if you're interested in reading the manual, it does have the basic information, like Jim said, really covers that end. Again, on an item like this, I probably don't spend much time reading the manual.
Right, it's a piece of coax, and we've talked about the build a little bit. In that paperwork, is there any sort of warranty information, or is there anything like if it would break, that kind of deal?
I don't remember, to be quite honest.
See, because they just take it and they throw it behind them. It's just a fire starter, stuff like that. Yeah, I wonder. I'm curious to see if there was any sort of warranty in case it does get sliced, broken, bent. You would think there'd be something, but I know I put you on the spot for that.
I don't see any mention of it on the instruction manual at all about any issues or problems with it or what to do if there is.
Okay, that's a consideration. And I wonder if they put the manual. Many do. They're putting the manuals on the online also. I like a physical one. For this product, we may not need to take it out with us or have it open. But for some things, I like to have that online manual and the physical one too. But that's just me, and everybody's a little different. All right, now it's the time of the 30-day review where we explore the install. I want to know how the fellas use this thing. And it's interesting. It's flat. The coax seems to be running in the center. How did they use it? Again, I got to be honest. I thought this might be one of those little gimmicky things, and maybe I would be afraid I'd shut the window and it would slice it in half. But that's my ignorance to the product, and I'm so happy that these guys are here. Jim, how did you install this? How would you use it? How did you use it?
Yes, this is one of those things. So, I did do the traditional method of throwing it in the window. What I will caution is if you have tight-fitting window screens, the kind that spring into place, it doesn't play well with those, especially if you live in areas with like mosquitoes and black flies and things like that. It will create a gap, and they will come through. So, ultimately, if you're going to install that, just something to consider. Once you put that in there, that window basically becomes unusable if you're relying on screens. But what I typically do is I will go to like my downstairs patio or something. I'll grab a radio and I'll hop over and throw a piece of coax over to the door, and I'll put this thing into the sliding glass door, and then put the an antenna out, whether it's a long wire or a loop or something like that. If it's super rainy out or something like that, and I just want to play radio out there for a bit, it works really well. I also I tend to go camping, and what I'll do is I'll put this with a zipper flap closes for the tent, and I'll have the radio in the tent and the antenna outside, and I don't have to worry about bugs getting in or things like that. Whereas kind of that circular coax creates a little bit of a gap. And it works really well for the smaller radios. Like I mentioned earlier, that 100-watt PEP limit, you can't run like a giant amplifier or something like that. But I mean, if you're just going out in the field and you're playing with 10, 15 watts, the thing is great.
Okay. Jack, same question. How did you use it? How did you put it in line? How would you use this?
Well, like I said, I've had several of them for years now. I have two of them installed right now currently at my house. One goes out the bedroom window to hook up to a radio up there, and which running HF primarily to an HF. Well, for years I had it to a G5RV upstairs, and it played well. Just I have those windows that slide open, so just stuck the one end out the window, closed the window on it. The gap is very, very minimal as to what I found. Ran coax to the radio on the inside of the bedroom. On the outside, ran from coax out over to a tree in which I had the G5RV strung up in. The second use that I have of it, using it permanently here at the house, is I have several scanners in the living room area of the house. And so what I do is I have the same setup. I run it to a scanner antenna that I have on a mast on the deck. And again, the slide up windows on the house. It goes in minimal gap, run it inside, and I run it to a multiple scanner splitter amplifier. And it just works great. Now, the other uses and the main uses that I've used it through the years is when I'm traveling. I found it to be a great asset to take with me traveling, because so oftentimes you're renting a condo someplace. I've been to Hilton Head, been to Florida many times. You're in a high-rise condo in which there's a patio door, a sliding patio door. And what I'll do is, for years I travel with my ICOM 7100. Most recently, I got a 705 to travel with. And of course, then COVID came in, so I haven't been traveling near as much. But the 7100 back in the day, I have two of them, one for VHF and UHF and one for HF. And what I do was to run that over by the sliding glass door, put it in, run coax to both the UHF and VHF. I've got a J-pole inside of a PVC pipe with a little PVC stand that I can sit out on a deck at a condo for VHF and UHF, and of course a variety of different types of antennas for HF depending on what the situation requires. And it's always worked great. It's very small to travel with. You can roll it up in a bag, relatively small. Two of them I usually have rolled together in a single package, and makes a nice little accessory for traveling with your radio.
All right, so there you have it. And I can tell you, Jim, N2ADV, and Jack, AB4WS, these guys don't play. These are hams. They are out there doing it. They are doing it. And so we're getting a firsthand look at some hams that are really trying to do different modes, different experimentation. So I'm really happy that these guys got to take it and play around with it for 30 days. Now's the portion of our 30-day review where we get into a bench test. We can see, is there a way to do an A-B type of test? Is there any other thing that's like this? This is the Comet CTC-50M. It's a Comet window feed-through jumper. I don't know if there's anything like it, but perhaps the fellows were able to put it to the test. Let's see how they did with SWR A/B testing and that sort of thing. Jim, how did you beat this thing up? How did you test it to make sure it qualifies for your shack?
Yeah, I mean, when I travel, I typically travel with like a lightweight coax or something, trying to fit things through windows. I mean, I'll actually go out and play radio in the field with my Jeep and fit things through the soft top. And I've put this thing side by side with RG58 coax, which is the really thin stuff. There was no measurable difference in any kind of noise levels. There was no change in SWR on my analyzer or anything like that. I also put it side by side with some of the bigger stuff, RG213 and RG8X and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, there wasn't any change in anything. I mean, this thing is so short. I don't think it would cause much of a change in impedance or anything like that. But certainly the radio didn't notice it.
Okay, good to know. All right, Jack, what did you do with this thing? Is there a way to put this on your bench and just to see how it performs against any of your other sort of coax jumpers?
Well, I've compared most of the stuff that I have in the main shack. I have the same setup as what you have, Christian, where I have the little board with the barrel connectors through and run LMR 400 to them and through. Intuitively, you get a feeling that it there's got to be loss involved in it compared to that. But in all honesty, while I have never put any scientific equipment up against and compared one to the other, I have never noticed a difference between the antennas connected up via barrel connector and connected up via this connector, both either on the transmit side or the receive side on SWR. If there is a difference, and intuitively you think, gosh, there's got to be a difference, but from a practical perspective, I've never noticed a noticeable difference between the two.
Am I the only one that I'm being completely honest, and I haven't tried this thing, but I thought it was a bit of a gimmick to use it until I started hearing the guys say, no, this is actually this actually serves a purpose. And is there something inherent about thinking it's flat? It must be this. It can't be as good. But you guys have played with it for a while now, and you have a different thought process, I guess, is what I'm getting to. Is there something built into this that makes you feel like it's an inferior piece or a gimmick initially?
Well, initially you look at it and you think there's no way this thing can work. That was my thoughts when I first got one years ago. I got one and I thought, well, I'll try it and see what it'll do. And of course, everything and I always call it everything in amateur radio, everything in life is a trade-off. There's pluses and minuses to everything. And I'm thinking, there's no way this thing is going to be that easy to throw it out the window, close it down, and bring it in without having to drill any holes or anything else that cosmetically maybe is difficult for us to do depending on our situation. And in all honesty, I really have never seen a difference to it. It is the real deal, I guess, is the best way. Even though you look at it and you think this is a toy, there's no way this will work, and it just does.
Jim, same question. Was there any sort of thought like this that this can't be? I mean, we all have that spirit of I'll try it, but I look at the price tag on things too, and I know all hams do. At $56, $57, $58, I'm not always willing to buy into a gimmick. Can you talk about that first kind of thought process when you're looking at a product like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's you look at like a board and a couple barrel connectors or something, $10-15 maybe at the most, although the price of wood's gone through the ceiling. And, looking at $50-60 for something, it does kind of scare you a little bit. I mean, really, I wouldn't pump a bunch of power through this thing. It is wicked thin. The center conductor is fine, but I would be afraid of any kind of like the braid that you typically see with a coax or something, whether it would burn out or not. Now, I've also used these things for quite a while. I've never had one fail. So, when you first look at it though, and I will say that when I first got one a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah, this is going to last for maybe a week or two. And I forgot I had one in the window when I was going to install this one. And I'm like, oh yeah, this one's still there. And I've got my little Kenwood VHF radio that we bought back in the 80s that was hooked up to it. And sure enough, I fired it up and it worked totally fine. So, you get over the reservations rather quickly, and then you almost forget that it's there.
Well, you had me at if you're going to keep the bugs out. If it keeps the bugs out of the house and the mosquitoes from coming in and biting me, I like this thing a little bit more already. This is the part of the 30-day review we get into the performance. How did it do with contacts, running power through it, these sorts of situations. Jim, let's talk about the performance and what you did. What were you expecting when you put it in and played with it there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a CW and digital mode guy. I'm not much of a sideband guy, but you know, when I put the thing through the door and you know, ran the antenna out there, I expected to get on the air and I expected to start to make contacts, and you know, that's exactly what happened. So you know, I'll throw my little KX3 on the floor next to the door and you know, start tapping away, and you know, sure enough, I'll chase some parks and folks that are out there activating, and I didn't really have any problem. If I could hear them, I could work them. You know, for the most part, it all came down to power. You know, like I said, if you needed more power or something, you know, something more than 100 watts, this is definitely not the thing for you. But you know, if you're comfortable with running CW sidebands, you know, digital modes, and you know, using the lower power levels, you know, it certainly is one of those things where it'll work.
Jack, the performance side for you, what are your thoughts on this thing as a performer?
Well, again, I've used it for years, but I've only used it primarily on sideband. Really haven't done much digital that I can remember using the device. I've done some VHF, UHF, obviously, on it. Again, 100 watts or less. Never have used anything with an amplifier through it. Again, the manual, you know, says the output power on HF to 6 meters is 100 watts PEP, on 2 meters 60 watts FM, on 440 40 watts FM, and on 1200 megahertz 10 watts FM. So it's not going to handle a whole lot of power. If you have an amp, you definitely want to look at the barrel connector through the wood or some other method of getting your antenna out. But if you're running 100 watts or less, you know, again, I don't think you're going to run into any problems. And again, I've noticed no loss, no changes in SWR differences or issues with it on any band or any mode that I've used it on. And, you know, I've had good success both on receive and transmit utilizing the device.
The power thing, that's really important to note. So that's a great addition to this review, is keep in mind your power and what you want to do with it. And this is the part where this isn't a big antenna that you'd stick up in the yard and you'd have to worry about curb appeal. But some people are very particular with their shacks and what they have coming in and out of their shack. In terms of curb appeal, Jim, is this something that is an eyesore for you? Does it hide well? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're installing it permanently, you are going to have, you know, the little black piece next to your window. You know, on the outside, you'll have that piece. So, I mean, it certainly sits there. And, you know, if you've got a significant other, spouse, what have you, that notices those kinds of things, they'll probably zero in on it. But, you know, it's one of those things where if you don't have a nosy HOA or something like that, they're probably not going to see it. I mean, it's bulky for you know, for its size. So if someone gets close enough to your window, if you're looking at this from like an HOA situation, you know, they might see it sticking out the window, something to be mindful of. But, you know, at the end of the day, you can stick it out the window and then pull it in when you're done. If you don't do the permanent installation, it does have screws and double-sided tape, like I said, so you can put it into the wall, and that way it's permanently installed there. But, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, it's one of those things you can really quickly pull in. So, you know, it's small enough from a distance that you won't see it. But if you're right next to the window, you are going to see this thing sitting there.
Okay. Thank you for that. And Jack, is this something? You got a beautiful shack there. I wish all of our listeners could zoom in here. All I can tell you is it's a beautiful spectacle with lights flashing and knobs and information. It's gorgeous. Putting things in our shack, we're very particular. Usually where we have them, we're always tinkering with placement. Is this something that can go and pass your test first, and then any sort of HOA significant other ideas?
Well, as friends of mine would tell you, I have antennas everywhere. That's one of the advantages of living in a rural area where 11.5 acres, every tree's got an antenna hanging in it. But, in my mind, the curb appeal is one of the draws of this device, because it is, compared to the other methods of getting the feed line outside from the radio to outside the house to the antenna, it's probably the most innocuous and less seen of all those things, and less damage and I say damage, but less modification of your residence in order to facilitate it. Basically, you open the window, and depending on what kind of window you have, I think just about any kind of window or door, this device would slip through. It could be positioned probably very discreetly, that it would be, for the most part, hidden from view for most people. From the street, I think you would have a difficult time seeing it at all. So I think that's one of the pluses of this device, is the curb appeal of it. It's at least the other ways that I run coax out and feed line out, it's probably the least offensive of all of them.
Right. Very good. All right. This is the portion where we get to tell the maker a little bit if they were paying attention or they did happen to stumble upon this at some point down the line. The Comet CTC-50M, the window gap coax extension jumper. And we've talked about the power a little bit. You have to make sure you understand the power limitations for it. But we're getting into the pros and the cons of it now. So let's talk to Jim and see pros and con wise, if we could help manufacturers, builders figure out a better thing for this. Maybe they nailed it. Pros and cons in your eyes, Jim.
Yeah, for what it is, I mean, there's not a lot of cons for it. I mean, it gives you a nice flexible piece of equipment. It's small. It gives you a couple of options rather than drilling holes. If you live in an apartment or something like that. I mean, I would say that if I were the manufacturer, they didn't know whether this thing can be painted or not. That was one thing that I had some questions on. Talking about HOAs and things like that. I know a lot of folks have to deal with those kinds of things, and it doesn't mention in there if you can paint this kind of plastic, if it will have any kind of impact on it. I didn't want to try it, but they might want to offer like a white or something like that, or at least note in the instruction manual if this is something that's paintable, especially for those folks that are trying to run this to like a rain gutter or something, and trying to make it so that people don't know that they're on the air. Plus, I mean, my windowsills are all white in the house, and I mean, this thing kind of sticks out a little bit when you put it next to the window. If I were to paint this thing white, or if it came in like a nice like white APS plastic or something like that, I wouldn't notice it nearly as much.
Okay. Jack, same thing. Pros and cons as we look at this, and if we could help the maker at all, what would we tell them?
Well, obviously, the pros from my standpoint is the ability to easily pass through that signal through a window or whatever without any modifications to your residence or anything at all. That's got to be the curb appeal of it is one of the biggest pros to it. The other thing is the portability issue. If you're traveling and you're moving, it's very small, easy to take with you, easy to put up, easy to utilize in those situations where you're at some place for a relatively short period of time and you can't do a real install type method. The biggest con obviously is the amount of power that you're running. It is a regular, relatively low power or regular power situation. If you're one of those big guns that has got a 1.5 kilowatt amp with you, this isn't going to be the device for you to utilize. Again, intuitively, you look at it and you think there's no way this can work. It's got to be a compromise, and most things in life are a compromise. But again, my tests have revealed that it isn't much of a compromise. And again, my final evaluation is it's like a lot of things. It's a great tool for the amateur radio operator to have in their amateur radio toolbox to utilize in those situations where this can be beneficial to them.
All right, Jim, we've got to do the overall rating. Of course, I'm going to give you a chance to say anything else. Is there anything else that you want to say about this product before we get into the overall rating? Anything we missed?
No, I don't think anything really been missed. It's like I said, it's another tool in the toolbox. Don't expect it to be something that it's not, and it'll work fine for you.
What about the price point? I'm going to ask you both a little extra extra sauce question. At $59, just say we're looking at $60 at HRO. Is this money that you would spend? I know, we don't want to spend other people's money. At $60, is it a value that you would probably spend money on?
If I needed to, and there's times that I have, I probably would. I would say that, given what you get for the money, it's probably worth it. Now, are there other ways to accomplish what you're doing with this thing? Yeah, probably. You can get away with a lot cheaper, and if you can, you probably should. But if this is one of those things where you're looking for a semi-permanent installation, or you're looking for something you can easily carry with you, it's probably worth the price.
Okay. All right. Give me your rating now. 5.5 to 5.9. Where does this one? What's the rating for you?
I would probably say it's a solid 5.9. This is something that's pretty useful. Again, it's not a one size fits all. There's always going to be those situations where this is going to be not the thing for you. But for the average ham who's running barefoot, who is just trying to get on the air, especially if you live in like a dorm or an HOA or an apartment or something like that, I would say this is a really solid thing. So top marks from me.
Good deal. Jack, just some other same sort of question there with the price point of this thing. I know you've mentioned in this review that you have purchased this before. Spending other people's money now, that's very difficult for me. That's why I have you guys here. Would you feel comfortable telling someone else to spend $59, $60 on this piece of equipment?
That's one of the things that it depends on your situation. If you're in a situation like Jim said, where you're in an HOA or you're in an apartment or a condo or someplace where you can't make any changes to it or do anything, I definitely think it's something worthwhile. And I'm trying to remember how much I paid, because I've the original one that I bought, and like I said, I've got several of them. It's been several years ago, and I don't. It's real unusual in this day and age for the prices to go up. Look at the price of gasoline today is $4.25 here in northern Kentucky, and a couple years ago it was $1.89. So everything's going up appreciably. And I'm remembering that I paid about that same amount of money back, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when I bought the first one of these. So something that holds their value and is relatively stable. I got to say that's it's a good price point. If that's something that you need in that particular thing, I think it's money well spent if you're in that situation where you're needing that type of device to get your signal to the outside.
Your overall rating, sir?
My overall, I'm with Jim. I'm a 5.9, 2 thumbs up.
2 5.9s. Wow. Okay. See, I came in really thinking I was misinformed. I had formed something in my mind thinking I was actually embarrassed. I'm being completely honest. These guys are hams. When I say that, I've known these fellas. They've been around the show and the community for years. And I thought, man, I don't know. And here they come up in the lottery to test this product. And I'm like, well, I'm sheepishly saying, I got this little thing over here that you're interested in this? Probably not. And to their credit, they were both like, yeah, I'll take it out for a ride and use it. And it turns out that they both believe it's a 5.9 type of product. So my thanks to both of you for coming and doing this and spending 30 days because here I was somehow programmed the wrong way, thinking something else. And you guys have turned me around with the ways of the 30-day review there. My thanks to James. He's November 2 Alpha Delta Victor, and Jack, Alpha Bravo 4 Whiskey Sierra, and to Carson, who spent 30 days with this, but had a little bit of a glitch in his system today and couldn't be with us for the full ride. He's Whiskey Quebec 1 India Carson up there in the great Northeast. So my thanks to the fellows. Look, if you want to do this, you want to be a reviewer, you go in one time and you stay in. It's a lottery, and you just need your 100-watt ID. You can get that at 100wattsandawire.com. Click the IDs. You're sequentially issued an ID. When you get it, then you can go sign up to be a reviewer on the 30 days tab. Ham radio adjacent, ham radio equipment, as long as I've got the money to put out for the products. That's what I want to do. I want to buy these products, send them out to be reviewed by our community so they can tell you the honest truth. There's no bias at all. You get to keep it. at the end, you get to keep it. You come on and tell the people, and you get to keep it. And that's how it works. All right? So I'll say 73 to the fellas and 73 to all of you. May the dogs run by your side, and by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsinawire.com.